So after graduation, I basically had that kind of that honesty moment with my parents, and I said, I really dislike the major I majored in. I'd like to go to graduate school for a teaching degree or something else, and I know specifically where I want to go. I want to go, and I went to college like 40 miles from where I grew up, even though I lived on campus, but it was basically the same place. And I wanted to move all the way out to Wyoming to go to college, to go to graduate school. And my parents basically said, look, you invested 4 years of not only time, but money into a finance degree. You have to apply for one job. And if you don't get it, then that's the universe telling you, move on to something else. And so I tried to hedge my bets, and I made sure that I applied in the most half-assed way possible for a job with a paper resume for a job opening that was posted in the want ads of a newspaper. And I physically walked into their office in shorts and a t-shirt. And I think the tips of my hair were frosted. Like it was an abomination, but I gave them my resume and I knew it was like, this is it, I'm not getting this job. And unfortunately for me, or I guess fortunately, it all depends, I guess, in hindsight, somebody had quit that they had recently hired and my resume was on top. And because I did so well in college, academically, that I qualified for some sort of accelerated placement, and that basically put me to the top of the list of all the candidates. And so lo and behold, I got the phone call to come in for an interview, and at least this time I wore a suit, and this was the 90s, so I had suspenders on and the frosted tips, so that should have been a direct, no. But it was an immediate yes. And when they called me that night, and it's, this is, the telephone still on the kitchen wall and it's corded, and I answered the phone, and they offered me the position. I remember looking at my father and saying, what do I say? And he was like, what kind of question is that? Like, you say yes. And I was like, okay, I'll say yes. And so I made a little resolution at that time. I said, I'll give it a year. And after a year, if I don't like it, then I can move on to graduate school. And at the same time, I was living at home with my parents, and going from a college campus to back home is a bit of a culture shock. And so I didn't have a lot of friends that were still around at home. And the Sunday night before I was supposed to start my first day of work, a friend of mine from home was dating a person in college that was still in college. And that person had a roommate that they needed to get out of the room. And they said, Rob, why don't you go out on a date with this person? And I did, and that ended up being my partner for 20 years. And so it was really easy to see how a simple decision, which was, I'm only going to do this for a little bit, and next thing you know, the first 7 years of my career stayed in that same job. And in those 7 years, you factor in, a serious relationship, a marriage, a house, kids, dogs, and the whole shooting match.